Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you're dialing in from. Thank you for joining us today on this talk that I think will be very interesting for a lot of our listeners. So my name is Andrew Au. I'm the Chief Experience Officer from Brytehall, a premium NFT marketplace that will be launching very soon. Today, I'm really happy and delighted to be joined by a really interesting panel of speakers. And what we're really going to be focusing and touching on is really about sneaker culture, and specifically what that looks like in the Metaverse or Web 3.0. So I think we should just dive straight into it. And I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome my panelists. So in no particular order, I'm just going to quickly introduce each of you. And then I think we can dive straight into the questions for what I think will result in what I believe will be a good conversation and discussion back and forth. So well, I'm not going to say my top left because it might appear different in your different screens. So I just want to quickly start off with Nicholas Romero, who is the co-founder of Satoshi Studio. In addition to that role, he is also the co-founder of Future Factory, a sneakers marketplace merging physical and digital worlds. So welcome, Nicholas. Where are you dialing in from, Nicholas?
From Paris. Thanks for having me.
Good morning. Thank you. Next, we have Jonathan Fong. Jonathan is the co-founder of Seoul Superior, Singapore's premier sneaker and streetwear convention that took place in 2013, as well as Street Superior, a lifestyle festival that took place in 2018. So welcome, John. John or Jonathan? What do you prefer?
John's fine. Thanks, Andrew.
Okay, great. And you're obviously dialing in from Singapore, so where I'm based. So good afternoon. And next, I'll move on to Marjorie Hernández. So Marjorie Hernández is, very delighted she can join us today. She is a co-founder or founder of Soul Founder.
Well, I have partners in both companies, so I think co-founder is
co-founder of Luxo, an Ethereum-based blockchain for the design and fashion industry. As well as the co-founder of The Materialized, the experiential marketplace for fashion NFTs.
Experiential.
That's what I thought it was, experiential marketplace NFTs. So you're dialing in from Berlin, so good morning. And
thank you.
Thank you for joining us. And last and certainly not the least, we have Toby Tan, otherwise known as Tobiato. Right, I got that right?
Yes, that's right.
Toby is an illustrator and visual artist based here in Singapore, and he's had many interesting sort of collaborations with the likes of G-Shock, Shake Shack, and Levi's, and Asics, and many others. So with introductions out of the way, I think a good starting point would be maybe for some of our listeners that are intrigued and curious about this, digital moment that we find ourselves in, maybe a bit of scene setting would be in order. And I thought maybe for this first question, I'd throw it over to maybe Marjorie or Nicholas, if you don't mind. And I think maybe if you could just help our listeners understand what are exactly NFTs and sort of sneaker culture in particular. So if you could just give a quick overview introduction as to what exactly are NFTs and how do they fit into the wider ecosystem of the Metaverse or Web 3.0?
Is Marjorie?
Okay, perfect. I go first and then you can go more into the sneaker culture.
Yeah.
So basically, an NFT is nothing but a representation of a good on-chain, with a difference from other tokens that in this case, these tokens, these non-fungible tokens, represent a non-divisible unit. So it's one of a kind of like how it works in the real world when you have a pair of sneakers or a Porsche or a handbag. In order to divide it, you don't cut it in pieces, right? So they exist as a unit, and that's what NFTs are meant to represent. And NFTs are not meant to be only digital; they can also represent the identity of a physical good, which is also very exciting. So yeah, it's the gateway and the only way to own stuff digitally. And that's why they are so powerful, right? Because so far, the more and more time we spend in the metaverse and in digital environments, the ownership of the goods that we are investing and purchasing is really important. And at this point in time, blockchain technology and through the medium of NFTs represent the only way to own goods on digitally and enable the digital uniqueness that is very exciting, and it kind of mirrors what happens in streetwear and sneaker culture in the real world. So to unique on sneaker culture.
So just before we dive into another phrase that has been thrown around and used a lot is the metaverse. So I think maybe if we had an overview or explanation of what, broadly speaking, is the metaverse. It's certainly a word that I've been hearing a lot lately. People have been talking a lot in different sort of sectors and areas. So I'd appreciate it. Maybe you could also share with our listeners just an overview as to what do we mean when we actually say the metaverse?
That's for me as well.
If you don't mind.
Yeah, of course, with pleasure. So basically, the metaverse is meant to describe this parallel reality dimension that we're building parallel to the real one that exists only digitally. Obviously the best example of metaverses that we understand now is a video game. So video games might be the inception point for the metaverse. I do personally believe, though, the metaverse is nothing but the internet, kind of like entering the next stage of evolution in terms of liberating itself from the two-dimensional experience and becoming even more ubiquitous as it is today in terms of having the hardware and the interfaces that make it break through that barrier that has been contained so far through these two-dimensional surfaces. So I think, the metaverse is just a different layer of experience, and, we know how technology works. So even if we do very little to make the metaverse better and better, we know at one point in time, the fidelity will be as high as real life fidelity. And the experience might be a bit more exciting. Certain things are not contained and limited by the rules of nature and gravity and physics and stuff like that. So I think, is this parallel universe that we're building collectively. And I think, we are the very early beginnings. I think, the first video games kind of like started showing the way. And obviously we have seen the incredible growth in terms of performance, and we are immersed, and in terms of like social media and things like that could also be interpreted as a form of entering the metaverse.
Yeah, great. Thank you very much. And I guess you said video games is a good example of sort of the early stages of what the metaverse is or will become. And I guess if we think further afield in terms of popular culture, films such as Ready Player One, which is based on the Ernest Cline book, and to some extent maybe even The Matrix. I think these are all give you glimpses as to what the metaverse may be all about. If I could pass over to you, Nicholas, to maybe share with us, diving more specifically into sneakers and this movement around NFTs around sneakers. And I think you have some visuals that you.
Yeah, I can share the visual if you want. So yeah, we have seen a few artists creating NFTs. So what was interesting?
Quite see it at the moment. Still it says it's starting the screen share.
Oh, okay.
I can see it.
Nice.
I see it.
Yep,
I can see it as well.
Here we go. Yes,
so,
I can see it.
Yeah, Marjorie said that NFTs allow digital content to be ownable. And this is really important for designers who are creating concept kits. Concept kits have been there for a long time. And now with NFTs, you can make things ownable, transparent. You can see how much quantity, for example, you have from one item. And for gamers, this is really interesting. And we have this designer, Pet Liger, who has done a really interesting partnership with Wilder World, which is a social metaverse where you can have some experiences and have an avatar and wear your digital items. So I think it's we are at a really interesting time where designers can sell and connect with their audience and sell their creations, which was not possible a few years ago.
Wow, thank you. really interesting sort of what's happening in the world. So I kind of wonder, what is it about, and this I believe would be a question for any of my panelists to really want to jump on. So if you feel like you want to take this, please, by all means, jump in. I'm curious to know, what about this particular moment in time is allowing for all this interesting experimentation to take place? I mean, to some extent, the metaverse, Web 3.0, the next phase, I mean, to some extent, things have been tried before, and maybe technology hasn't allowed for everything to sort of converge. So I kind of wonder, from your point of view, what do you think is allowing all this interesting developments to be taking place right now?
Yeah, I think it would be like in engines like Unreal Engine for one part. On the gaming side, like games are more and more powerful. On the other side, we have the hardware. So we have the iPhones, the new iPhones with the LiDAR's camera, which allow great AR experiences, so augmented reality experiences. And on the NFT side, of course, COVID has accelerated our presence on the social media in the virtual world. So it's all these things who made the world where we are in right now.
I think if I could just jump in and just share.
It sounds like it's a combination of things. So
absolutely.
hardware, latency, computer graphics, the fidelity, as you referenced, Unreal Engine. So I think all these things are happening around the same time to really allow for things to really take a greater hold, and not for it just to be sort of a sci-fi and be left to sort of very small corner of the sort of culture universe to take place. Great, thank you for that. A lot to sort of mull over. So I guess I want to maybe throw over to John and Toby, and more specifically around sort of street culture, sneaker culture. So sneaker culture is something that I am not personally super familiar with. I'm aware of it. I'm knowledgeable to an extent, but I'm nowhere near the level that you guys are immersed in that sector. So it's always been something that has always had a very strong and passionate community around it. So has the entire sneaker community, as it were, really embraced and come on board with NFTs? And how might the future of sneaker collectibles change sneaker culture? So yeah, I'd love to hear from John and Toby what their thoughts on those points.
Maybe I'll start. I feel that definitely there have been key personalities in the culture that have have spearheaded or highlighted the role or the big change that NFTs have brought into sneaker collecting or even streetwear in general. I would say that probably it's still quite a diverse mix. Like, some people are definitely on board. Some people are just very keen and excited to adopt and explore this area. And even the global brands themselves, I'm sure they're paying very close attention, and they're probably at they've already hatched things that are going to be rolled out really very soon. But at the same time, there will also be sneaker enthusiasts, people that just love old school heads, right? That they will tell you certain things like that cannot be replaced or cannot be that can't be replicated with NFTs. I mean, just opening a new box of sneakers, smelling that box fresh scent of new shoes, that tissue paper crinkle sound, like those very physical, tangible things. That can't be replaced. But they're also kind of, I guess, in a sense, that you're also kind of missing out, for the same argument that you can break necks when you walk down the street with wearing a new pair of shoes. On the metaverse, probably when you have in your avatar something that's a one of one, virtually you break a whole lot of eyeballs, I suppose, on that realm. So I mean, I think it's definitely an exciting new time. And I think, if nothing else, the whole perception that you don't want to be left out on jumping on something that might be highly profitable as well is definitely at the back of the mind of collectors.
Yep.
I think for me, as compared to Jonathan, I think I'm more of a newer sneaker enthusiast, right? Jonathan's like an OG, right? So I think it's not an age thing; it's just an appreciation thing, right? I only got into sneakers like fairly recently as within my art career. So I think within the sneaker community, there's always this kind of like groups, right? There's the OG sneakerheads, and then there's like the new kids on the block, and there's like the people that like the hype items only. I think the whole NFT thing brings to like potentially a new audience altogether. So which in itself is something that is very valuable. So people that are interested in like blockchain, cryptocurrency are jumping on sneakers purely because of NFT sneakers, right? Not only because of like cryptocurrency and blockchain anymore. And I think like what John mentioned as well, some personalities like Jeff Staple, Bobby Hundreds are delving into the NFT space. I think there will be a percentage of like OG sneakerheads that will definitely be enticed and moving over and actually keeping the eyeballs keen on NFT sneaker space. And I think brands are starting to slowly get into it. So I think I saw ASICS, they did launch a Sunrise collection over like with a few sneakers, and I think the funds from those sneakers which go into the art residency program that sort of builds emerging artists. So that's quite nice. But I think another recurring theme on that note is a lot of NFT drops from brands right now are backed by like, oh, we're gonna support this certain charity with the funds. We're gonna support emerging artists. So I think that there's a lot that can be delved within that, because the fact that they need to sort of add that in shows that I think NFT sneakers and launches are not quite there yet for big brands. Maybe I think in terms of along the same vein of thought, other brands like Futures Factory are sort of leading the charge in the kind of NFT sneaker space, and I think the big brands would sort of eventually have to play catch up. And then I think when that happens, I think a lot of sneakerheads will potentially shift over. Yeah, so I think that in itself is very interesting.
Interesting. So you mentioned ASICS, but obviously the big two would be sort of Nike and Adidas. Are they sort of doing anything on this space, or are they keenly observing from the sidelines? I mean, what's the latest information on what those guys are doing?
So okay, full disclosure, I looked up before this, right? So because I haven't seen anything, and so they have done something. They're making their moves. So if not wrong, Nike did in December last year. I think they patented crypto kicks as a term, right? So I see Nicholas nodding, so I'm sure he knows.
A while back. Yeah,
right.
It was a long time ago. It was, I think, 2018.
Yeah, exactly, right. So, but I don't think there has been anything since then. I'm not sure if Nicholas or Marjorie might have anything else to add to that. And I think Adidas launched like a 3D playing card with one of the athletes as well. But again, that was like the profits from that goes to like a charity. So it builds on the previous point that I mentioned.
Yeah, Marjorie and Nicholas, are you aware sort of what those two brands are doing in this space, or they are still? We are waiting to see what they will do. I'm sure they're looking at this, right?
Yeah. So I heard about Nike patents back in 2019. I think it was just a pilot. They tried a few things, but they never did like an official drop. And for Adidas, I think they worked with some Italian designers to launch something. I will show you. I will show the screen later because I have to find it. But the big brands are like cautious on this thing. We have seen Dolce & Gabbana making something really interesting. Also on the decentralized, we have seen like a cool project from Rico. I don't remember the name of the brand, but he was working, I think, at Balenciaga before, the owner of the brand. Right, Marjorie?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, I think he was the creator.
So yeah, I think So I think, in terms of, I think it's just a matter of time until all brands will start offering digital goods. I think, there's no question around it. And I think it will be extremely naive and eventually to the detriment of their survival as a brand if they don't do it. So just as you offer products and you offer things, you will also offer digital goods. I think it's just a matter of time. But as Nicholas was saying, I think it's in terms of strategy, there's not like a clear blueprint, and there's no we haven't seen like a lot of like very successful mainstream drops that will create like that blueprint for other brands to follow. But I think it's just a matter of time, and that in terms of that, I'm not concerned. I think the idea has been validated. There's clear that there is these trends don't reverse. So eventually they will have to come and do it. The question is how well if they will do it properly, if it will make sense in terms of experience. But yeah, it's just a matter of time until we see it.
I just wanted to jump in and just check, like from what I've been aware, I know a lot of the major brands have been using blockchain technology to authenticate their products. So I don't know whether this might, and this has been like around floating. The idea has been floating around like probably the last 2 or 3 years. And I don't know whether this could be the next push where they could kind of marry both, where you have that ability to authenticate your physical and your digital product, and prevent the whole idea of like people getting fakes and disputing whether a product is authentic as well. Because I mean, at the end of the day, who is the true authority to authenticate anything from Nike or Adidas? I mean, you know what? Like if you buy a Rolex, you have that watch expert from Switzerland that can say this is real, this is genuine, this is not, right? But I mean, there to all the resale sites, like at the end of the day, you back your trust based on that person that provides that middle service. So I think this is something that they definitely probably are exploring and will introduce if it marries the idea of the NFT together with the ability to authenticate their products.
No, that's a great point, and actually it's sort of in line with sort of what I wanted to ask you guys. So when we talk about sneaker NFTs, am I right in my understanding that it can take a different sort of formats, in that it could be a physical sneaker, and then you have the NFT, which is the digital ownership certificate of that physical item, or it can also be a digital virtually designed shoe that exists purely in a digital format. So there is no physical item, and that series of codes, that ones and zeros that make up that digital sneaker is the NFT. So is that roughly the two formats for when we talk about sneaker NFTs?
Yeah, I will say so. Definitely, we talk about the concept of the phygital being the physical product that has a digital identity, and that digital identity is more than just a certificate of ownership, but also it's a great way to guarantee access, to show membership, to engage with the brand, etc. And then obviously the digital only product, which is like the nature of the NFT itself, right? So that's also the easiest to execute in many ways, because when we have a physical good, we always have to go back how we match the physical product with the digital identity. So that's always like that oracle issue that a lot of people discuss. But obviously, those are like the two alternatives, and I think they can be really intertwined, and brands can use both things simultaneously to create really interesting experiences to move back and forth between physical and digital.
Yeah, and I guess considering things are being stored and recorded and coded on a smart contract, depending on the chain you're using, then that can unlock other sort of benefits or functionality. So maybe you get exclusive access to a sneak peek on let's say, for example, like Tinker Hatfield's studio. Those are the type of things that marketers really have at their disposal. So to some extent, the canvas is pretty blank, and it's really up to sort of imagination in terms of how creative we can be with NFTs and props around that. So, I mean, physical sneakers are made of leather, canvas, glue, stitching, and obviously there is a deterioration that will take place over time. But if we're talking about digital goods and services, I guess that doesn't necessarily exist. So how might the sort of longevity of digital sneakers change attitudes about sneakers amongst the sort of traditional, sneakerheads and collectors? Or even potentially change the definition of what sneakers are, physical things that you place on your feet. But in the metaverse, maybe I don't have feet. Maybe I have a dolphin tail. So, it can kind of go anywhere. So, yeah, I mean, it can go pretty crazy. So what do you guys think about that?
Well, I'm sure these guys, Jonathan and Taviato, they know better about this, but I'm pretty sure, you know, a lot of sneakerheads, they don't wear the sneakers that they buy, like they just keep it in the box.
They
So I
smell the
think
paper, right?
the fact of having feet is not really playing a big role in this. I think the big difference is that the digital sneakers, they actually will get better through time. And that's, they don't get
appreciate the
old.
value,
They will
you
get, they will, and not only appreciation and value, but it's also like they can come and, you know, they can give you access to things. All of a sudden you have all of this information, they record experience. So it's not only the appreciation value, I think it's also you will have a lot of things that might grant you access. You can prove that you're an OG, like you can do so many things.
Like a digital key.
Right? Yeah, it's like a digital key. It's like the access right point. So I think digital sneakers, they will get better with time, and you don't have to worry they will vulcanize if you don't touch them for a while, like it happened with physical ones. So I think it's cool. I think it's cool.
Yeah, Toby, I saw you respond and react to what I just said. So I'm just kind of curious, as somebody who's not a sneakerhead, what are some of the more extreme examples of sneakerhead behavior in terms of like vacuum sealing the shoes and hermetically sealed rooms? I mean, what are we talking here?
I think so. John can probably jump in as well. I think in terms of this, but I think that the term in sneaker culture is like icing the shoes, right? So you ice it, so you mean you don't wear it at all, right? So you keep it dead stock. So I think when that happens, the sort of the conversation goes along the fact that you're removing the functionality of the shoe, so it's no longer for function, right?
An object, yeah.
Exactly, it's seen as an art piece, and I think that ties into older sneakers as well. So older sneakers, when the sole starts to yellow, the bubble starts to get foggy, people kind of know that it's not for wearing anymore. The sole is going to crumble. So when that happens, functionality is removed from the sneaker as well, right? It's kept as like a vintage piece and like an item. So I think viewing sneakers as an artwork has been around for a while, like Sotheby's auctions selling sneakers for like millions of dollars. And viewing sneakers as an art piece, I think there are definitely parallels with that, as well as viewing sneakers as an art piece on NFT spaces as well, because functionality is no longer in question at this point, right? So you're seeing them as an artwork in a physical space, as well as an artwork in the metaverse.
Andrew, like you mentioned, definitely, especially in Singapore, like storage of physical sneakers is always very tough. And I think with the humidity, and I mean, in general, shoes will crumble, they will fall apart, they will yellow, the bubbles will burst. And the point that Marjorie brought up about exactly, like, with people with a collection of 200 over pairs, I mean, at the end of the day, what is it? It's an episode on sneaker shopping, or it's an episode of like, come to my crib and look at my wonderful display of shoes. But I mean, isn't it the same? I hear the rationale that it's pretty much the same. And look at my digital wallet, and this is the collection of stuff that I own on the metaverse. But that said, as well, I think there is a different joy when you come home after a long, terrible week at work, and you pull something out, and you just hold it in your hands, smell it, touch it, wear it for a few seconds, and put it back. There's some joy in that as well, so I'm not saying it's like, I think it's definitely possible to enjoy both. But yeah, definitely the argument for storage and the ability for it to not be just tossed out after 10 years is a very valid argument.
Yeah, so I mean, as I mentioned, I'm not personally a sneakerhead, but I guess what I can relate to is comic books and I guess Lego as well, right? Some people buy Lego, and it's very important that if you're collecting it for resale, the box is not creased. And I guess to some extent there are some similarities with sneakers. I personally, the process of actually constructing and building Lego, I find very enjoyable and therapeutic. So I'm not one of those hardcore crazy, but I know there are people that would buy 2 or more of the same set, one to build and one to collect. And I guess, would that be the same for sneakers? You would buy one to collect and one to actually wear?
One to rock and one to stock, as they would say.
I love it.
One to rock and one to stock. Yeah. Or doubling up sometimes, if you can afford it. But
Yes.
Of course, I mean, it is what it is. It's just some collectors have that principle and belief.
So I'm kind of curious, the sneakerheads amongst you, and I guess this is more John and Toby, like how many physical pairs of sneakers do you personally own, and how many pairs of digital sneakers do you own? Tell us about your collection.
Maybe I'll start. So in my middle to late 20s, I would hit up a lot of like warehouse sales. I would hit up a lot of the distributors in Singapore whenever they would have warehouse or clearance sales, and I just like buy samples, which is something that they're not really supposed to sell back then. But yeah, I would just hoard, man. It's like, for me, it's like about, oh wow, this was never released. It's a very strange and unique colorway. And I would just have like 500 to 600 pairs of shoes at my mom's old place.
How many
Now,
pairs? How many pairs?
500 to 600 pairs. And now that I am married with 2 children of my own in a 3-room flat, definitely like kept that collection a little bit cleaner, a little bit. I mean, it's probably about 150 pairs now. But yeah, and at present, I do not own any digital sneakers.
Okay. And Toby?
I think John opened his topic by saying he's late in the mid-20s, right? So that's where I am right now. So I think I am at the current space where I am building the collection as much as I enjoy viewing sneakers. I think that I don't really currently have the capacity to buy a lot of them because I think the retail prices of sneakers have been going up quite a bit in my experience. But I do have about 20 to 30 pairs of sneakers that I do enjoy and appreciate. I don't have any digital sneakers yet, but I've been keeping an eye out on them, but haven't really pulled a trigger. Yeah.
So, yeah, how about Nicholas and Marjorie? How many pairs of shoes do you have, Marjorie?
Well, I have. Go ahead, Nick.
No, I don't own a lot of sneakers. I'm a poor sneakerhead. I would say like 5 or 6. I'm really minimalistic. Only the minimum.
And you also to rock or to stock?
I rock everything, even my old Jordans.
Yeah. Very cool. I rock everything. That's an amazing answer. I own, I think, like maybe 15 pair of sneakers. My favorite sneaker is the Reebok Insta Pump. So I have several of those. I do rock them all as well. Yeah. I like them because it's like the Back to the Future vibe a little bit. I always felt when I was a kid, I liked them since I was a kid. I still like them today. And I have a few others, like the Adidas and Ralph Simon stuff and things like this. But yeah, and then digital ones, I have 3 pairs. So like 1/5 of my physical. Mm-hmm.
So do you I'm kind of curious to know, amongst your collections, do you have one shoe, physical or digital, that is your sort of the jewel of the collection, as it were?
Guys, if there's one shoe, there's one. We are all more or less the same age. Tobias is a bit younger, but the Back to the Future sneaker, right? 2015. No, it's not
Air
that
Max. The Air Max. Yeah.
Yeah, incredible.
What do you say, Nick?
Mine would be the bread from Jordan, the Jordan 1.
And John, of your vast collection over the years, is that, I'm sure there must have been some memorable ones.
There are too many to mention, and I'll just say that the one that is the truly coveted one would be when So Superior, we get to do our own major label one, which hopefully will come in a few years to come. So I'd say that one elusive shoe hasn't landed yet. Toby.
I think for me, as an artist, right, I think I value sneakers that I myself had a hand in sort of designing. So I have it here. Okay, so this is like a sneaker custom I did with Asics like last year.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so which is why I really love the Asics brand because of what the opportunities have given to me. So this was the sneaker that sort of got me into sneaker culture in a sense, because as a younger artist, I wasn't that into it yet at that point. I love to look at sneakers, I love to appreciate sneakers, but I never really got ingrained in the culture. So this happened like roughly the same time, like right after I met John. So I got ingrained in the culture through him and Dexter as well. So this, like, aside from the fact that I got my designs on the like an Asics shoe, I think it's quite sentimental. And I think most of the shoes I have, because I don't have a lot, right? I think when I do buy a shoe, I think it has like sentimental value as opposed to me just liking the colorway. Yeah.
So there's a lot of talk about NFTs in the sort of sneaker culture world. I wonder if we were to put on sort of our crystal ball and gaze into the future, what are the things that we might be talking about and working with after NFTs? I mean, do we, I mean, at the moment, NFTs seem to be sucking a lot of the oxygen in terms of what people are talking about and doing. And it's those formats which I mentioned. I mean, as we talk about, I think Marjorie, you mentioned sort of the next stage of the internet. What do we think is coming our way? And what does it mean for collectibles and sneaker culture, for example? Do you guys have a view on sort of what might be next after NFTs?
Well, I think what it comes next after NFTs is people don't talk about NFTs anymore because it's already normalized to a point, you know, like people, you know, in the past, people will talk about, I don't know, the internet and go to the internet, and nobody says go to the like, you know, you don't
Surfing
say
the World Wide Web,
because,
right?
you know, like www dot, nobody says that anymore, you know. So right. Exactly. So I think it will be absolute normalization. It's just part of consumption, and people expect that if you buy something, you actually own it, because it's a very interesting business model to sell people stuff that they cannot own. That's very interesting. It's crazy that it has worked so far. So, you know, people will expect if I'm giving you money, I own it, and it will be de facto, right? Well, and then you don't call it NFTs, you just call it, I own stuff, I have stuff, ergo yeah, I own it.
Yeah. I mean, look, I think NFT, non-fungible tokens, it's a kind of a strange mouthful of a combination of words, but digital products and services have existed for a long time before people talking about blockchain, metaverse. I mean, think about our relationship with music streaming services like Apple Music or Spotify. Like, I don't own the music. I guess I lease or I license the music, and I can only play it on my iPhone. I can't take that music and play it somewhere else. I don't really own it. I might think I own the music, but I don't own that music. So I think the notion of ownership is a very big aspect of what the metaverse and Web 3.0 is, and very, very closely tied with ownership is identity and self-expression. And I think we're just starting to see just how wild, weird, and crazy and wonderful this may be. And you know, I think I earlier mentioned Ready Player One. So I think, you know, how are you seeing how people sort of self-identify and express themselves already starting to change at what I believe is the you know, still early stages of Web 3.0. What are you guys observing from your vantage points?
Well, I think Chad Knight, he posted the other day, I think he did an NFT of it, where he says the metaverse doesn't understand gender or something like this, or something around those terms. And I think, you know, the way our physical appearance is something we control to an extent, but, you know, when you, for example, deal with racial bias or gender bias is something that is completely out of your control, right? The way you look is just, your phenotype is completely out of your control. So I think, you know, the metaverse kind of like give that absolute freedom of expression in terms of also you are not bounded and restricted by what is your gene giving, mother and father giving genetics of the way you look like, but it's all of a sudden you can just express yourself in the way you feel like. And I think there's a lot of power in terms of that. And I think you can have several identities for different places, right? Like having your on-chain identity that you can take to different places of the metaverse, and you can curate those identities depending on the, you know, on where you are at the moment. If you are like in your sneakerhead community, you have this avatar that looks like this, but then you also are like a guy who really enjoys poetry, then maybe you have another avatar for those type of places. So I think in terms of curation of self-expression, it's completely free of boundaries, right? And I think still, you know, we really try to express ourselves through the mediums that we have with clothes and makeup and hairstyles and whatever in the physical world, but I think digitally, and it's also, I think it's very, very freeing also for like guys, like for women, we can wear makeup and stuff like that, and there's nothing around it. But men wearing makeup is still a bit of a cultural bias, and makeup is kind of cool. So I think, you know, if you are in the metaverse, all of a sudden, like you could, you know, enhance your face and do things to it, and, you know, express in ways that possibly, you know, in the physical world, you will have to deal with some feedback or, you know, pushback or something.
Yeah, I think when we look every year at the clothes that people wear at the Met Gala, you're starting to see some really interesting, men wearing traditional female clothing and the whole issue around gender and discussion around gender. So identity is evolving, I think. But I guess that is kind of at odds with, Web 3.0, the metaverse is supposedly promises our ability to seamlessly move with our identity and our information in a secure manner. So I think there are some big hurdles still ahead of us. I think the grand vision sounds super interesting, but I think there's going to be a lot of work still to be done to allow us to sort of enjoy and experience that sort of nirvana utopian kind of expression of the metaverse. I'm just conscious of time and just wanted to maybe we can just go around and maybe if you had any sort of a parting or final thoughts to share with our listeners. Could I start with you, Nick?
Yeah, with like Jonathan said, some things in the real world cannot be replaced, like the smell of a good pair of sneakers, for example. But with NFTs, you can create or recreate and enhance some experiences in the virtual world. And you shouldn't forget that the digital assets can be backed by physical experiences or physical sneakers. And what you said on the music industry, like the platforms are taking a lot of the cuts on artists, and they own the music. So for consumers, it's if you stop paying, it's not your music anymore. And with Web3 and NFTs, you can empower creators to sell and connect directly with their communities. And as a fan, you can collect, you can really own digital assets from your favorite designers. And I think that in the next years, you will be really a big wave of creativity and empowerment on the creator side.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that's gonna, as I said, I think we're at the beginning stages of this. I think more and more people sort of understand and educate themselves about what is Web 3.0, NFTs, and all these terms we throw around. And I guess there is still some barrier or friction to things like setting up a wallet and paying gas fees, and I guess to some extent those things are barriers and friction points at this stage. So I kind of wonder when, say, like our parents are fully comfortable with all things crypto and decentralization, and is that a 5-year, 10-year, or 20-year window we're talking about? I guess we'll find out. Certainly interesting time. John, do you have any sort of parting thoughts you want to share with our listeners?
I just wanted to talk about the hype about how similar to sneakers. There's this whole perception where like collecting and flipping and it seems like a very quick and easy way to make money. And whether people are just jumping on the whole NFT, like the whole collectability of NFTs with the idea that it's just to profit and make a fast buck. I hope it isn't the case, and I kind of think that with, like as mentioned, if once it becomes second nature to us, exploring the metaverse, I hope that it just provides opportunity for everybody, and that people should just be more chill in terms of like trying to like collect with the pocket and mind and heart and sentiment in mind, regardless of whether it's a physical or digital asset.
I think that's a very sensible and wise way to approach it. Thank you, John. Marjorie.
Yeah, parting thoughts. Well, I think, in terms of what you were saying, in terms of blockchain technology, this is something that LACSA has been thinking and working on for the last couple of years. So we do have an answer to a lot of those things. So there's hope in the horizon. Which is a good thing. And in terms of, you were saying about our parents, and I wouldn't worry about them. I think they're too old. Somebody still needs to buy Rolex and Porsches, so they can stick to that. I think, this stuff is for a different cohort of people. And I think even I am 36 years old, and sometimes I feel I almost too old for it. I think it's, I'm almost observing it as an anthropologist in a certain extent. Like when I see my son and his friends, they understand this to a level that is for somebody who grew up with regular television. It's a different understanding. I understand it, but I don't. It's not 100% part of my nature. And for him and his friend, it's 100% part of their nature. So I think what we are building is for them and for people after them, just like the internet was built for us, you know. So this has been built for somebody who's coming after us. So I think that's kind of cool. And you know, somebody needs to buy the old stuff, and nobody cares about it anymore. So our parents can still stick to it. But I think, you know, I think we will see a tremendous. I think the panorama in terms of consumption is going to look very different in the near future. And in the words of David Fisher, brands are the new bands. So I think it continue to be like that. And I think the most valuable thing the brands have and creators of culture in general is the ability to create a community. And I think tokenization and NFTs are a fantastic tool for them to empower them to do that. So.
Thank you, Marjorie. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think our children's generation, and you know, obviously, I still remember a time when you know, I think I got my first email address in university. That's showing you how old I am. But yeah, we have digital natives, which is our children's generation. Well, maybe not. But then I think one step beyond, you have crypto natives. So you know, it's just going to be second nature to them, and we're playing catch up, I guess. Thank you. So I just wanted to deliberately end on Toby, because this month Esquire Singapore will be launching its first NFT with Toby, along with the physical sneaker in collaboration with Satoshi Studio. So maybe Toby, maybe if you could just share with us some parting final thoughts, and maybe tell us a bit more about this this project, this collaboration you're working on.
Right, sure. More than happy to. I think for me, from a creator and creative standpoint, NFT is really an exciting space. Primarily because I strongly believe that art thrives with competition. So like maybe like a couple years back, digital artists was only a term that some people used, right? There's still traditional artists, there's like people that delve into physical spaces. And I think right now, because of how big the NFT space is and the sphere, I think a lot of people that were not digital artists are suddenly becoming digital artists. So with the influx of creators and influx of different creatives and artists, I think there will be that competition to try to one-up each other, to do something that someone else hasn't done, to do something that maybe someone has done before but better, right? So I think in that space, it's definitely very exciting to see how creatives will one-up each other and sort of push the whole creative scene up to a point where, well, we mentioned that we're not sure where it's going to get, right? So I think that in itself is very exciting to see where creatives would push. And I think personally for me, the main bulk of my work is still physical, right? So I paint murals for restaurants, for Shake Shack and stuff like that, and I create products for brands. So I am the perfect example of what I just mentioned. The fact that the NFT space is so big made me consider to delve into the NFT space even before this sort of Esquire sneaker was discussed about. I was already like thinking around, you know, like meeting friends that like all the crypto bros, right, trying to find out more about the NFT space. And I think I'm really excited to get the chance to work with Esquire for this, and be an honor as well to be the first Singapore designer. So this sneaker, it's quite a special one. I think at least we're trying to make it a special one. I think it centers around the theme of touch, which is a very interesting topic considering that it is an NFT. So I think the topic of touch really is will form the core of the sneaker and how we sort of approach this whole NFT drop. And I'm really excited to share that once it's out. Yeah.
Right. Wow. Sounds exciting. Thank you, Toby. So for more information, everyone can head to the Esquire Neighbourhood microsite. There are other activities like masterclasses and interviews for visitors to sort of check out. With that, I'd like to thank all of you very much for taking time out of your day. I really enjoyed it. I learned a lot of it. I learned a lot about what you guys are working on, NFTs, sneaker culture. So thank you very much. And I hope our listeners also found this interesting and useful. So I think that will conclude our Esquire Neighborhood session. So thank you, everybody. And see you all soon. Take care. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, guys. It was a pleasure. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.